Welcome to Tuesday, October 13th, 2020. Well, welcome to a wind festival. We've already sort of had one here over the last couple of days, but it'll just continue. We've got 2 more days of pretty stout winds, especially later today through Wednesday, before the end of the week brings us a little bit of a break. So be ready for the wind. Of course, we don't want to see this on the Mullen Fire, but we're going to have to deal with strong winds there. We're going to have really strong winds along I-25, Colorado and Wyoming, and I-80 across southern Wyoming, so travelers be ready for that. Now, northwest flow here over the next week or two is going to really keep us guessing. Expect the forecast to change. Really, anything past 3 days is up for grabs, as the weather modeling is still having a hard time getting a grasp of things. And we told you yesterday, northwest flow is a really tricky setup, especially this time of year. Now, we do see possibly some better precipitation chances with a weekend cold front. However, it depends on what computer model you look at. So again, we're going to see this pattern keeping us guessing. Ultimately, this is exactly what happens as you change the season. You get a lot of variability in the models. You get a lot of forecast question marks, so just be cautious with anything past 3 days with an outlook. This is where we are today. Notice how the jet stream winds are we call this zonal, very west to east across the country. If you got on a plane in Seattle, you'd get to New York really quick with a strong tailwind. The high pressure ridge is sitting off the west coast, kind of flattened out a little bit. You see how tightly packed these black lines are? These are some really strong upper level winds that are going to be trending this way today and tomorrow. And when you take wind and you take it perpendicular to the front range, most of the Rocky Mountains generally go north-south. And when you bring a wind at 90 degrees or close to that to the ridgeline, you have really strong winds on the plains. So that's what's coming our way. As we go into Wednesday night and Thursday, notice what happens here. The high that's off the west coast here gets built up further north into the Gulf of Alaska. That in turn digs a trough. So colder air is going to come in on the back side of this windy period as we get into Wednesday night and Thursday. There's going to be some rain and snow showers with this cold front coming in as well. But when we build a ridge up here, we go to the fridge. So high pressure is going to start to build and be more dominant in the eastern Pacific after this wave passes through. Notice as well the green and blue colors here, which represent some really cold air, getting better consolidated. When you get into winter, you tend to have what we call the Hudson Bay vortex, or a vortex of cold air that builds over the higher latitudes. It kind of meanders up and down, right and left, and really is a big producer of cold air masses for us during the winter season. Notice how it's growing, getting better established. This is what the chance of precipitation looks like through Friday afternoon. That northwest flow will produce some showers, might even get a few showers Wednesday and Wednesday night over the Mullen Fire, with some showers spreading out on into the plains, especially Montana, northern Wyoming, Yellowstone Park, and the rivers and the Bighorns. But you get east of the mountains there, you're just not going to get much. And again, the western slope of Colorado and the Great Basin sheltered underneath that high pressure ridge. Now take a look at what happens this weekend. This is for Saturday night and the Sunday. High pressure in the eastern Pacific, that high pressure ridge there getting better established, so that opens the door to colder air. Look at this pocket of really cold air that's building and going south. So there's some cold air in our future. It's just a matter of how much this penetration south happens and how much this high pressure ridge builds in the eastern Pacific. 10 days out, we see the high pressure ridge still there and another push of cold air and a pretty good tongue of those colors, the green colors pushing south and west into the Rockies and into the northern plains. Now, if we do see this colder weather coming on in, there's going to be precipitation with it. You can really see the cold air on the European model wanting to push in strongly by the middle to the end of next week. Again, this is a computer model. Take it with a grain of salt. But we're seeing some signs and we're gaining confidence that we're going to see this shift in the weather. And if you convert that to snow over the next 10 days, that's what it looks like. Again, it's a model. Take it with a grain of salt. But we're seeing the writing on the wall that the really warm summer-like weather we had during the first 10 days of October, about ready to really come to an end for good. Why are we getting more confident? Well, I'm going to point you to the stratosphere. Sometimes we talk about the stratospheric interactions and how they play a really big role in our winter season. When the stratosphere, talking about 60 to 150,000 feet or so, really up high, up to the edge of space, when the stratosphere gets colder and warmer, it affects the weather here in the mid-latitudes, because what'll happen is when the stratosphere gets colder, we see a situation develop where we actually keep the colder air closer to the North Pole. But when the stratosphere warms up, the colder air that's on the North Pole wants to push further south into the mid-latitudes. It sounds counterintuitive, but when the stratosphere gets warmer, we get colder. When the stratosphere gets colder, we get warmer. This is where the stratosphere is as of today. So here we are looking at the polar regions. These pockets of blue here showing where the stratosphere is a little bit colder. So you see the stratosphere on this side of the globe is a little warmer. So it's actually colder over here in this part of the globe right now. But what happens over the next 10 days? Look and see what happens. Notice the stratosphere over the polar regions really warms up. And when we start to see this signal, it really gives us confidence that colder weather is coming. So as the stratosphere gets warmer, we're going to get colder over the next 7 to 10 days. So that tends to match up with some of the modeling that we're seeing in the long term. But you get a lot of variability, especially with the modeling. So don't trust the forecast past the next 3 days. Thanks for watching and listening to the Day Weather Podcast. We'll see you on Wednesday.